Welcome to the Misunderstood Podcast, where truth isn't always pretty and questions are more powerful than the answers. I'm your host, Will King. This is a show that dives headfirst into topics that most people tend to avoid. That's politics, religion, race, history, culture, power, and purpose. We're not here to convince you. No, we're not. We're here to challenge you to think a little bit deeper, speak a little bit bolder, and grow wiser. Because in this world full of noise, being misunderstood might just mean you're onto something real. So get comfortable, or should I say, get uncomfortable, because it's time to talk about what really matters. This is the Misunderstood Podcast. All right, family. Today's guest is truly the embodiment of mind, body, and spirit alignment. She's not just one thing. No, 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 no. She is many. By day, she serves the community as an American Sign Language interpreter in the Maryland, D.C. area in the past, and now is currently in the Rochester, Buffalo, New York area, making sure that the unheard are not unseen. By night, she transforms into a holistic wellness advocate, content creator, and the creative force behind the brand Blue Moon Whispers, where ancient herbals remedies meet modern day healing. But she isn't just about her products. She's not just about those little crafty posts that she puts up. She's about purpose. She's about walking by faith while building her brand with her hands, literally crafting natural remedies, creating empowering content, and showing people what it means to heal from the inside out. On top of that, she's a beauty consultant for Mary Kay, also a fitness enthusiast, and a woman who's not afraid to talk about real life struggles, from hormone imbalances to heartbreak, and still point people back to God, the God. Whether she's interpreting for high-level government events or educating her followers on how to balance their nervous system, she stands grounded in her mission to help people reconnect with their bodies, their emotions, and their creator. So trust me when I say this isn't your typical guest. This is someone who moves with intention, lives with heart, and builds with soul. Please help me welcome to the Misunderstood Podcast the multifaceted, faith-filled, fire-moving force that is Leah Disabitino. How are you?
Incredible.
Wasn't
Now
that intro?
After that intro, I feel incredible.
You kind of feel like an A-lister after
Honestly,
that.
I'm like,
Who is that?
First of all, that's like so many compliments right there.
Well, you
So,
deserve it.
thank
You do a
you.
lot of things, and
I appreciate it.
hopefully at the end of this show, everybody will know you just a little bit better.
I hope so.
Are you ready to go?
I am.
You ready to rock and roll?
I am ready.
You're comfortable?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get misunderstood. All right, so for my first question is, for those who don't know you yet, how do you describe Leah Disabitino?
Well, it's a good question.
Mhm.
I should have an answer. Okay, I didn't get any of these questions in the beforehand, so
And that's
in
why
my
it's
defense,
good.
so.
That's why it's good. Because
Well-
my people don't want to hear some talking points. They want to hear
I
the
get
real on the spot.
So I am a daughter of God.
Mhm.
That's first and foremost. It's one thing that I say all the time, and maybe it's intense for people, but I am like a daughter of the King, one
Mhm.
true God. Like
Okay.
that's who I am. And then I'm a sign language interpreter.
Mm-hmm.
And people usually stop me there and say, "Oh my gosh, I've always wanted to know sign language."
Oh my
And
God!
So it usually stops
As a young kid, I had a little bit of sign language.
there, and
Uh-huh.
it usually becomes a topic of conversation
I
at
think
that point.
You know what I knew?
What did you know?
I know thumbs up. I
The
know the middle
universal.
finger,
Yeah.
and I also know the peace sign. Is
Yeah.
that if I'm talking with my hands, that's somewhat
It's
sign language, right?
It's considered more gesture.
Yeah?
Like, yeah.
Okay.
Thumbs up isn't actually like a sign. It's more of a gesture.
Oh, okay. Fine.
So there's different, you'll learn, as we talk more about it, you'll learn.
Well, okay. So second question. So you do a lot of things, right? Sometimes for some people it may be overwhelming, but you're finding the perfect balance to wear all these different hats. So with that being said, as an interpreter, as an entrepreneur, as a healer, as a creator, content creator, which one of these versions of you was born first? And on top of that, which one do you enjoy better?
Well, first was the American Sign Language. I started that at 16 years old.
16? Like at 16, let me see, what I was doing when I was 16. Oh, man, I was drinking 40s. And listening to Tupac. I was not thinking about sign language. So how did that come up?
Our upbringing, very different.
Yeah.
So I was at a dentist's office. I was going at the Eastman School of Dentistry. Like, it's crazy. I had my 4 impacted wisdom teeth. Anyway, there was a deaf family. I don't know if the kids were deaf, but the mom and dad were deaf. And they were trying to talk to the secretary or whoever was at the counter. And she wasn't being really nice, the lady at the counter. Very frustrated, and they were just trying to communicate. And at 16 years old, I thought it was cool. Or I thought them doing this with their hands was cool, and I'm Italian, so, it kind of comes
I
naturally.
couldn't guess that with that last name, Disabitino, that you were Italian.
We talk with our hands anyways. Right. I might as well get paid for it.
Right, might as well. So you saw this interaction with the patient and the front desk lady. You saw the frustration. So it was just the fact that what they were doing with their hands made it cool for you to first, like, kind of like, hey,
yeah,
what
I was
is
fascinated. I'm a visual person. I love anything like colors, anything visual that's fun.
Okay.
It's like a dolphin,
Right.
Squirrel.
Right.
And anyway, so it was just like a fly to light. Like, I was attracted to it. And then I realized that, like, I would like to help. I would like to know this language so that if I were there in the future and I knew the language, I'd help them get whatever they're trying to get out to that secretary, because she's being really mean. They no patience, and I would like to help them.
Okay, so you feel like you had your calling. This is what you wanted to do.
Yeah, 16.
So, do you have to go to school for a sign language person, and how long would you have to go to school?
So a sign language person, will call them an interpreter.
The interpreter,
and a lot of times people say translators, which we're not. We're not translating one spoken language to another spoken language. We're actually going from, it's a very confusing topic, so I won't even get into it, of translator versus interpreter. But interpreting, you have to go to, you don't have to go to school. There are some people that are born into deaf families.
Right.
Hearing kids that's their native language would be sign language. So they become interpreters, and they can get certified as long as you know the language fluently. If you pass your certification, which is really hard, not everyone's certified. But then you can work nationally. So, but for me, I had to go to school for 4 years. Well, I went for 2.
Okay.
But I didn't know sign language at 16, so I had to take night classes.
Okay.
Going to school. I was homeschooled, y'all, just so you know.
Oh,
okay.
Well, we got to touch that a little bit.
Shocker. So anyway, I went to school, graduated a year early. So really it was like 3 years of college.
Really?
But it was a 2-year degree.
Okay.
I just decided to go cheaper, and it was RIT. So I took community classes.
RIT is?
Rochester Institute of Technology.
Rochester Institute of Technology.
So, like, expensive classes. I'm not a student yet there. So I took some classes at Monroe Community College and transferred them over, the liberal arts classes, transferred them over RIT, cheaper. Gotcha.
So I see it says American Sign Language. So there's different, like, you know how, like, we got different language when we speak, but you guys got different languages in your sign languages, like Spanish, Chinese. Is that such a thing or not?
Yeah, that's an actual popular question, or a misunderstanding or misconception is people think that sign language is universal, and it's not. Every language has its own sign language.
What makes it different, though? So, like, is it different fingers being used? Like, how do you know, like, you're American Sign Language interpreter, how would you know somebody's speaking in sign language in a different, like, vernacular?
Well, it would look like a foreign language to me. So just like someone, so do you know Spanish?
A little bit.
No, but do you know it fluently?
No.
So, okay, but you can identify if someone's speaking
If I hear it, yes, I could definitely.
some things, right? But like you don't really know what they're saying if it's like a very back and forth conversation. So if you're looking at another sign language, it's the same idea. If I don't know German sign, I just see them doing this with their hands, but I would know, obviously, I think there's a difference between if you could, do you know how you can tell the difference between a fake interpreter who doesn't know the language? Yeah. We've had them on TV,
yeah,
right?
I've seen that.
They do the same signs over and over again. So, if I was looking at German Sign Language, I don't know German Sign Language, but I can tell if it's like they're fake, like they're doing the same sign again and again and again.
Gotcha.
And I know the hearing person that's speaking is not saying the same word again and again.
Gotcha.
So anyway, you can tell like if someone's fake, but you would definitely not be able, I would not be able to tell a deaf person what they're signing in German sign because I would not know.
For me, not being fluid in sign language, I would just see two people just using their fingers. I would not be able to differentiate just by eyesight. Where we would be able to hear the difference in if I'm speaking Spanish and you're speaking American just by the sound and the words we use using. You're able to. So it's kind of like it'll be kind of a weird thing for me if I wouldn't know that. So you definitely got to be in the in crowd to figure out that. So for every culture, they have their own sign language.
For every language has its own sign language.
Wow. That is awesome. Did not know that.
If that country has developed it or, there's a lot of countries that aren't as progressive in this area as America is when it comes to the disabled community.
Gotcha.
So I don't know that there's definitely deaf people in other countries that if it's not a actual language in their like, I don't know, think of some really weird, like not weird, but more of a rare language. Where
it's tough, like Aramaic.
Well, Aramaic is more, there's definitely Aramaic sign language.
There is?
But think of like what's another smaller country, it's got to be an offshoot of some sort of
something. I don't know. I can't think of one.
They would have maybe a local sign, like their community has their sign.
Okay, like their own little like slang version of.
Yeah, like So but again, there's every language. German Sign Language is not the same as American Sign Language. Spanish Sign Language not the same as German, American. Anything.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's just pivot here. Let's pivot back. So you are a business owner. So what inspired you at first to start the Blue Moon Whispers? Like, was it a moment? Was it like a health scare? Or something deeper that happened to make you want to develop Blue Moon Whispers?
Well, deeper, I would say, if we're going to go there.
Yeah, let's go.
So I'm pretty, like you said, I'm pretty open about myself.
Yeah.
I won't go into the upbringing, all that stuff and the, things that led me down this road, but I became very dependent on alcohol.
Okay.
And it was through that experience, but I knew something was wrong. I was coping. You kind of know, like I'm pretty intelligent, and I'm like.
So you were coping with what type of trauma though? Like what was going on like in your life at that time? I know a lot of people are listening, and they're like, okay, well I drink a lot of alcohol, and I was through some trauma. Like what is it? What were you dealing with at the time?
Well. It depends on what season of my life you're talking about.
Whatever time you want to share, like what you were coping with alcohol.
So just for me, a lot of
was it like relationship?
Was a lot of relationship trauma.
Okay.
A lot of even a little bit of some church hurt and things like that.
Okay.
Also, just kind of feeling very confused in purpose. My time with the alcohol was more of like a 10-year period, I would say.
Okay.
But it got bad towards the last 5. But like 10 years, my 30s, 30, to 30. Well, let's say 25 to 35.
Okay.
Okay.
But like when you say drinking, like what was you, what were you drinking, and like how much on a daily basis would you be drinking?
So it started like a slow fade in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like on the weekends with friends. I didn't start drinking until I was 26 years old.
Okay.
It's like around that time. Just around the weekends, stress with work, things like that. There was at the time when I was starting to drink, more heavy, like noticeable, like, okay, I'm kind of getting a little tipsy on the weekends and stuff. I had just gotten married, my first marriage. And I have to say that always because I've got to identify which one. Number one. We were going through this time at work where the company was going under and they weren't paying us.
Right.
So we had all this like hours in and no money to show for it.
Right.
And like you jump ship when the CEO is promising like, look, it's going to turn around, things like that. So it was stressful. So it was more
finances.
of a Mad Men kind of thing.
Gotcha. So like what was your drink of choice?
At that time, it was Captain and Coke.
Captain and Coke.
Yeah.
And okay, so I like to drink. So, I do shots, I'll have my beers, I do all that. But like at one point were you like assuming a lot? Like you were like, holy shit, this is a lot of alcohol I'm drinking. Like at what point and what were you like what was the amount like you were like taking in at that time?
So when I realized it was kind of a problem, it's when I started doing things that I wouldn't do sober. Making some mistakes.
Right.
Like that I wouldn't do.
Right.
That's not who I am.
Right.
And the next day I'd be like, whoa.
Wow.
Like
what did I do?
Yeah, like why did I do that?
Were you drinking like bottles to the face?
No. Okay, so I also have all right, so we're going to get honest and stuff. I have something called polycystic ovary syndrome, which is a hormonal imbalance. So when I drink alcohol, it's almost like I'm doubling, like I'm having a double instead of a single.
Really?
That's the way the insulin and sugar and the alcohol somehow seems to be like double the amount to my body, almost like my body's allergic to it. So it was wreaking havoc on me physically, as not only that, mentally and spiritually.
Okay.
I would drink. I wasn't at that time when I started like that. I was drinking maybe like I'd have on a good night, I'd have like 6 doubles if we were going out, and it was like 6 to 12, 6 or 7 to 1 in the morning.
Really?
It's like 6 doubles.
Okay.
I could do.
Okay, that's not bad. In my eyes, I'm like, okay, yeah. I know a lot of people like, what? That's not that. I'm not feeling like that. Like, but you said that if you had 6, if you double it, that's 12. If you had 12, that means you had 24. Basically, what your body responds.
It was my body response.
So then, you got to the point where you were like, okay, I'm at the point where I need to stop. I need to do something, and then it clicks with you, like, hey, maybe let me fix myself, and while I'm fixing myself, cleaning myself out, maybe I should help other people and create this company called the Blue Moon Whispers.
Well, and so alcohol was fun for the first 5 years, and then the last 5 years of that time, it was like, okay, something's wrong. So I would like stop drinking, and then unfortunately I'd like relapse.
Gotcha.
So in that time, I was seeking it was my mental health.
Right.
I was then diagnosed with bipolar. I was PCOS, that kind of goes hand in hand with bipolar, like just depression, all those things. And then so I got on Prozac.
Okay.
So it worked. It was like on cloud 9. I'm not kidding. Like
what do you feel like when you're on Prozac? Are you like stoned? Like
no, it's like this gradual. Like it takes 2 weeks for it to really hit your system, and then you realize you're not caring about things as much as you used to. So it's not like a stoned at all. Like it's this, life is okay. Like it's all going to be okay. It's like they say, so when you get sober, they say you have like the pink glasses, you're on cloud 9, you're on like, it's like you think everything's great, everything's good. But
so are you on that like almost like that I don't give a F type of?
No.
Hi.
No, honestly, it just so whatever noise. So there is an imbalance in my brain. I'm happy to admit the fact. You know, I mean, people would say it's spiritual. Like, I grew up in that like, you took medicine for depression. It's a spiritual battle.
Right.
So anyway, so I still have those voices kind of in my head every once in a while that say that. But that's not the truth. Like, I have an imbalance. And sugar does a lot to the body. Hormones do a lot to the body, mentally as well. And so there's just that, when I got on Prozac, I just decided, after about 2 years going through a really rough patch and stuff, I decided to wean off of it, which why I went down the herbal route.
Gotcha.
Because there is a way you can achieve the same feeling. Because for me, unfortunately, however this works, like, there's deficiencies in certain areas, and I'm not like that well versed in it, but definitely things that, such as herbal things that can help add those. So anything I'm deficient in, such as, so there's things like ashwagandha that help with lowering cortisol. I tend to have, I've had multiple different tests growing up, always trying to figure out this PCOS thing, because I wanted to be a mom. I want to have children. I was having infertility issues.
Right.
And so I went down that herbal route as well. At that point in my life, this is back in my like mid-20s, and then I stopped. But then I had some sort of experience with some herbal medicine and doing something natural versus taking all the shots the doctors were trying to give and whatnot. So I did have some experience there. But then when this all happened, and I was taking Prozac, and Prozac has a black box warning with an amount of fluoride that's a lot that you should not be ingesting.
Consuming, yeah.
I decided, well, let's try it. So then I try it, and I'm fine.
You just tried it? Just try, okay, let's try some natural ways.
Well, I will admit, I had my doctor, so I'm on Prozac. I would never admit, like, do not get off of any of your SSRIs. Anybody listening, please do not do this cold turkey. You want to do it with a doctor who's then going to wean you off, which it took me 4 months to wean off of Prozac. And I met you, actually.
There I was.
Yeah, I met you 3 months into my weaning off of Prozac.
Right. That's perfect. You
How
had
have
a
I
new
been
drug.
so far?
You had a drug of will.
That's my new drug.
That's your new drug.
How have I been this year, though?
You've been all right.
All
Been
right.
kind of loopy sometimes, but anyway. So you started Blue Moon Whispers because you found a holistic way to help you with the things that bother you, your mental health and your hormones and balances. So with that, you make your own herbal remedies, right? So like what do you make? Like, what type of products do you make with your hand? Like, what do you do? So
I first started it for the tincture purposes of, when I say tinctures, it's you're taking an extract of a plant. So instead of a tea form, not everyone has the time to make tea. You know, you want to take a quick dropper of a strong extract from a plant. So that's what I started Blue Moon Whispers for.
Okay.
That's where it all started. And then I branched out into using the herbs in oils and having them, you know, in a dark place for 6 months or 6 years. Oh my gosh, 6 weeks. And letting it marinate, and then skin. So I have eczema as well. So anything to do with skin is like, you know, something I have a passion about, dry skin. So I love the oils that I infuse with herbs that help moisturize and hold moisture, like humectants in the skin.
Okay.
So it's a passion for me. These are all reasons physically that I've had that I decided I'm going to help myself, and then in turn, it's helping other people.
So with all those herbals, the herbs you deal with, I have to ask, what's one ingredient or product that you swear by, and why?
So the biggest, most popular seller is Heal Your Salve.
Heal Your Salve. What is that?
So Heal Your Salve is a combination of two powerful herbs. They're known as the warrior herbs and the bone knitter. And those, so first, well, yarrow is one, and that's the warrior herb. Native Americans use this herb all the time. Any cuts, anything topically on the skin, it would heal. And yarrow is also great for ingesting. It's also great for your digestive system. But if I'm talking about my Healer salve, it's something that topically is applied, because that yarrow is paired with comfrey root, which is the bone knitter. And the bone knitter has allotonin in it, which is, it basically calls cells to the area to regenerate, calls nutrients. So if you have muscles that are aching, if you have carpal tunnel, if you got rheumatoid arthritis, you got any sort of injuries anywhere on your body, you rub that in and it goes and penetrates down to the bone and calls healing to the area in so many ways.
I also see that you're a big advocate for THC.
Yes.
Do you apply this in any of your products?
I do. I do put it in the Healer salve. Of course, you got to be a good friend of mine for me to be able to do that with all the regulations with that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's, on the side. But yeah, I do have THC in those salves. If you're in a lot of pain, it doesn't give you a head high at all. It's not for that purpose, people. Everybody's like, am I gonna get high? It's like an ibuprofen. So
do you find people get weirded out when you mention THC in your product? Do a lot of people like say, oh no, or people like more like okay with it now?
A lot of people are okay with it.
Right.
It's like shocking how many people and nobody's not okay with it. Actually, the only reason why I would say, to somebody, hey, I make this with THC. Like, remember we were speaking to that one lady, and anybody that works for the government or state, they can't. So I always have to specify.
Yeah, right.
But nobody's ever weird about it. Like, oh my gosh, you use THC.
Like, weed is like pretty much like Tylenol nowadays. It's getting normalized. Like,
hey,
remember that 10 years ago when it was like illegal?
There are so many benefits.
So crazy. I'm all down for it. I mean, THC is THC. I mean, I never heard anybody OD off THC.
You can't.
Besides, you just oversnack. You oversnack.
OD is like, it shuts the receptors down. Oxygen goes to your brain. That's when you overdose. They don't have, the cannabinoids don't attach to those receptors in your brain. So you never can overdose.
It's just attached to your the fat kid in you.
Yeah,
so that's when you want to go snack.
Totally the munchies at midnight.
So we touched briefly on mental health and emotions and spirituality, and I wanted to get in there a little bit more. Okay, if that's okay with you. So let's talk about the mental health specifically for a woman. As a woman of faith and as of purpose, right? How do you navigate your low seasons? Because a lot of people don't understand, like, we have seasons. We have good seasons and we have, really bad seasons. Like, it's like this through the course of a year. When you are in your low season and you're a woman of faith, how do you navigate that? How you navigate through that?
Well,
what do you do?
So in my lows, I've learned you will notice when I'm low, I cling to God. Like, I'll have a lot of YouTubers on that are just talking about the love of God and the faithfulness of God. I'll have worship music on. I'll be on my knees crying a lot. When I'm in my low, you haven't seen it yet, but it's that. Like, it wasn't always that, though.
No. So, like, when you say, like, you're on your knees and you're crying, are you praying at the same time, or are you just kind of emotionally just releasing?
Both. Like, I always feel so much better after. Well, no, I get a headache usually. I'm like, why do I gotta cry so much? But, like, I always get a headache when I cry. But I find that it's both. But I really feel like most of the time it's just a conversation with God.
And, like, is it like people get the misconception, they get misunderstood when people say they talk to God and they think like, well, you're talking to yourself because he's not talking back to you. That's just yourself answering yourself. Like, what would you say to those people that say that and think like that?
So God doesn't always answer when we want him to answer.
Or how we think.
Exactly.
Okay.
It could be through a friend the next day that confirms what you were praying at that moment to him. They say those words. Someone says the words. You will find if you ask God to talk to you and you pause and you listen and you don't hear him, it doesn't mean that you won't hear him later. You won't hear him the next morning. He will answer you.
I find that people most of the time, they're very impatient. Like they feel like their problems and what they're dealing with is so pivotal that they have to get an answer right then and there. And when they don't get that answer, they tend to stray off. So what do you tell people like that? What?
Well, your emergency isn't God's urgency. Like, that just came to mind when you were saying that.
Nice.
Like, seriously, I'm like, where did that come from? Sometimes I find that I impress myself.
Yeah,
like, I'm serious.
impressed.
You said it, you were saying it, and I'm like,
sometimes
your emergency isn't God's urgency.
Nice.
So
I'm stealing that, put on a t-shirt. But go ahead.
Because maybe, like, so what you're asking him for, maybe to your detriment, maybe to your you can't see beyond. So like there's so many things I still wonder to this day, like why didn't God answer me there? But he does. It's not like I'm always listening. So if you're not stopping to pause, like if you're someone who just wakes up every day, goes right to work, gets right in the busyness of your day, where did you stop and talk to God? Like, nobody's like praying unless they need God.
Unless they need something, or they're in some difficulties and life altering situations. That's when people tend to go run to God, but not when everything's good, right?
Yeah,
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, because you have a very strong faith, obviously, have you ever felt misunderstood, point intended, in your healing journey? Like by friends, by church, or even by your family during that process? Have you ever felt misunderstood?
Oh, very much so. So it's like it was really... Is
there an example you can give us like one time?
So I feel misunderstood when I talk about church hurt.
Church hurt? What do you mean by church hurt?
Well, just some trauma, things that I think that I was exposed to. So this is, just for the record, not my parents, just church in general.
Yeah, the
as
whole
a child.
Religion.
Yes.
All that.
So like when I say church hurt, it's more of I'm not picking on anyone in particular. I'm just speaking to the religion
Speak to it. This is misunderstood. People are going to get it misunderstood regardless. Just speak your truth.
Yeah, and I feel misunderstood when I talk about that because I feel like I understand the people closest to me may feel some sort of way when I say that, like trauma as a kid being exposed to, certain indoctrinated things that were not healthy. Were not healthy for us.
Right.
But so I also feel maybe I even don't completely understand what was influenced versus what's maybe Leah's disappointment.
Tell me more about that, though.
So, I was brought up in the church that we went to when I was a younger kid and very impressionable, right, at that time. And then as a teenager back there, it was the greatest gift God can give you is to be a mom and to be a wife.
Right.
And to be the caretaker of your home, to be a Proverbs 31 woman. All of that. And so great. Those things are great. But that's not everyone's calling.
Right.
And if it's the only thing that is purpose, especially for a teenager, that's like purpose there. Right. That's all that's taught, is that's what the greatest gift is.
So then if you don't get to be one of those things, didn't you feel less than? Is that?
Yeah, what's my purpose? I'm lost.
Gotcha. Okay. Wow. And obviously you mentioned earlier about, child wanting kids and stuff like that, which, I mean, we can go down that path if you want to, but that was one of the things where you felt lost, like, because you couldn't fulfill that purpose.
Yeah, so just for the record, I don't have kids. I'm 39, just for the viewers. 39, have no children. I've been through 2 divorces. So you tell me.
But you always wanted kids.
I always wanted children. Right. I always wanted at least 6.
Sick. Why do you say at least? That's
3 boys, 3 girls.
Holy
boy, girl, boy, girl, boy,
smokes.
girl. I had it all. I had them named.
6 kids?
I had them named.
Named?
Yes.
She said at least. Wow. Okay. 3 and 3.
Yep. And my best friends at the time, they knew.
So what were the names? What would have been the names?
Of my best friends?
No, I'm talking about the names of the 6 kids. Do you still have them remembered, or is this something?
Yeah, a few. Abigail. I loved Francesca. But then I kind of like, after that. Then as I aged, Aurora.
Okay.
But then the boys, I was going to leave that up to my husband.
Nice.
That's what the husband should do, is name the boys.
Wow.
But that's again, just things that society teaches you. I mean, like, and then like breaking all of those thoughts, like all these things that I had a construct of that have been broken in my adult life, like in my late 30s, like all these things, right? So the guy should name the boys, and the boys will be dad's boys, and the girls will be mom girls, and they'll be in dresses and bows and all the things. And
that's not happening anymore.
We'll all be out milking the cows.
That's the Little House of the Prairie. No, I don't think that's a thing, right? Not no more. I don't think that's a thing anymore. I mean, not around here.
Well, no, I'm just being more facetious about the milking the cows thing. But like definitely 6 kids, but I definitely it was Abigail was my one, and although oh my gosh, what was the other one? That actually have she's someone's kid's name right now.
You're stealing people's kids' names?
No, they named him this, and I can't even remember.
You are a thief. So while you think of that, if someone's right now listening or watching and they're going through a burnout or a spiritual confusion, like, what's your first piece of advice for them to do?
Burnout when it comes to God?
Spiritual burnout. They're just like you, like at that one point where it's like you start questioning faith, you start questioning your purpose. Like, what's one piece of advice, or the first piece of advice you would give them?
Okay, so but when you ask that question, that means something different. So like,
what do you mean?
I'm like, I'm not burned. So when it came to burnout from my construct of what I thought was purpose, I guess you could say it had something to do with God, because he disappointed me. So you're right. You're right. You're like, you're getting there. So God is in that. That's how I felt.
Right.
So now, hindsight, I'm actually grateful that I don't, because of the 2 divorces. So
what's the advice, though? What was the advice you would give a person?
My advice would be, so during that, I had to ask God the questions. So I think a lot of times we're afraid we think asking God why can you answer me? Can you please answer me this question? I would like to know. I think what I felt was that was kind of disrespectful to ask God, will you you need to tell me, like not asking him, more demanding something, please, something, give me something. It was, I can talk to him. Like, so you're a dad. If your daughter came to you imploring you, like, kind of like, Dad, why this? It's not, a father's not upset. He's not like, don't talk to me like that, when they're like, why did this happen to me? You know, why didn't you help me? Well, honey, I was there. I was there holding your hand.
So are you saying if somebody's going through that, do they, like, are you saying have a conversation with God?
Yeah, just talk to him.
Gotcha.
Like, that was what I think we just, I mean, honestly, the only thing I could tell someone is if you want to know, ask God. And don't expect him to reply immediately.
Right.
Don't expect him to reply the next day. He will answer you. And it's really cool when he does. And I would ask people, if you're really in that space, write it down as soon as you get confirmation, like that he heard you. And you will, through like friends, family, just daily something will happen, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I was just asking God why about that. And I feel like he just talked to me but through something completely that you would have never thought.
Right.
It could be through a movie. I mean, there's so many times I've watched something and it was like the perfect timing. It was exactly, I'm like, I just said these words. Like,
was there a specific movie, something like happened recently with something like that?
Yeah, David.
The new show
The House
on
of
Prime,
David.
The House of David.
Yeah.
You were what were you
Purpose.
at? You were asking for purpose. And then an episode, or
you know, it was when David was out in the field and he had been anointed king, and he had these visions that this is what he was gonna do. Yeah, he's in the field tending sheep. Why would God call him to something so great when he's not anywhere near greatness?
Right. Like, just a simple, humble,
like, he's a sheep herder.
Worker.
His father would, and the story goes, if you've seen the House of David, but then if you read the Bible, you'll read that he was cast aside by his family. Honestly, we don't really know why, but like, his own family was trying to hide him. They didn't believe it.
I find that in all the stories in the Bible, God tends to find or choose the undesirables.
Yeah.
I racked my brains at it. I don't know much. I know enough, not like verse like you, but I like to say I am an active student of the Christianity religion. And I noticed that he does not pick those who think they're righteous. He's always picking the underdog, the guy or the woman that's, like I said, the undesirable or the sinful ones. So why do you think he does that?
God's interesting like that, because it's no one knows. Like, you cannot predict this, it's God. God picks the unworthy, but they're not unworthy in his eyes.
Right.
He looks at the heart.
Right.
So it's like what we think, and then how we think it should be is not at all.
I hear the strength in your faith now, and your conviction with God and Jesus. But I have to ask you. And I want you to be specific, and I want you can sit on it and think about it for a second here, but has there ever been, and I know there's been, a moment where you felt God was silent with you, and what did you do to handle that? Because I noticed that a lot of times people who are in Christianity or any religion, they go through this phase where they question God, and they feel like God is not listening or God is not there anymore. So at what time, when God was silent with you, how did you handle that?
That's a good question.
Those are the great ones.
I know. So in the past, I can tell you I handled it different ways.
Just give us an example of one time. It doesn't have to be, just one time that you can recollect where you felt God was silent with you. And even though you prayed and you were trying to do the right things, it just felt like his presence wasn't there.
Yeah, it was my last marriage, my
Really?
last divorce. Yeah. I felt like I felt abandoned like I never felt before. And that's because I also felt abandoned by God.
Mm-hmm. But how did you handle that? Like, how did you get through it?
I dug deep and I cried out to him, you know, but I didn't still feel it. Like I felt very sad for months. I felt wounded, like a wounded animal, like just wounded by like my heart. And I never had felt that wound before. And it was like, and I felt like so alone. Like God was always there by my side. Always. I can even tell you the times where I was just like shocked that God was still there and I felt him. But this last time I felt alone, and I think that's why I am where I am right now, because when I felt so lonely, I knew he was there. I knew it was something I truly felt in my spirit that it was me, something was blocking.
Right. Well, there's a saying that the teacher is never there when the student's taking this test. And I think we tend to forget that God's not always going to hold our hands. We're going to have to go through some suffering in order for us to get through some things that's to come, to get us stronger, right? Whether it's wherever you're lacking at, whether it's your dependency on other people or your self-esteem or all these different things that people struggle with, and you go through this time and you felt like you're getting beat the hell up, and then all of a sudden, a year later, you're like, I'm glad I went through that because now I'm stronger, and if that comes down the pike again, I'm not going to break. You know what I mean? So I feel like a lot of people don't look the struggle, don't give the struggle its rightful deserving respect when it comes to growth.
I think that there's two different people out there with what you're referring to. The one's a victim and the other's a navigator. The one you talked about that said, look back and realized I wouldn't trade that because I learned this through that storm. Then there's the victim, and it's looks back, pour me a drink, and I've been both.
Right, but I'm saying though, you had both sides and you navigated through them both, and what I'm getting from you is that you're saying on both occasions you continuously went to God, even when you didn't hear him. You kept praying, you kept hoping, you kept fighting, and before you knew it, your fighting was the norm, and it was like you wasn't fighting anymore. You know what I mean? Is that making sense to you?
Like I was just fighting to hear him.
So like, let's say I'm a boxer, right? And I'm punching a tree, right? When I first start punching it, it's going to hurt like hell. And I'm going to bleed, I'm going to scar. But pretty soon, my knuckles are going to start, my fists will get a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it doesn't hurt anymore. So I'm saying like trials and tribulation, just like when Jesus did with the 40 nights and 40 days, right? Like for us to be better, right? So I think a lot of time when people go through their seasons, we don't like give it a respect that it deserves. I know it sucks, but callous. With God, when we go through we had to go through that in order for when you're in it.
Yeah.
But when you get out of it, don't you feel better?
Yeah.
Stronger, smarter?
And you can look back. I think if someone's going through a tough time right now, first of all, there's two things that as you were talking, I thought to talk about. The things I noticed for me is the cycle was always repeating. It just was a different face or a different season, time, place. It's always the same cycle. So if anyone's struggling today and you're feeling like something's blocking, and like you said, it's like maybe the time where you're taking the test, right? But whatever that is, like for me, was a cycle that I had to break. So there is some introspective work that has to be done. What am I doing over and over and expecting something different? God is sometimes as a father, if you're telling your daughter or son something, the same thing over and over again, and they keep doing it, there's at some point you say I hands off. They gotta do some introspective work to figure out, like, it's not me, it's you.
Right.
You know, God's like, it's something in you that you can't keep doing this over and over. I want my daughter. Don't want a servant in my house. I want my daughter in the house.
Got you.
And at the time I was acting like a servant, not a daughter.
Wow. Okay.
So it was that. And then, so the cycle, breaking the cycle. And the second thing, oh no, go ahead. I forgot the second thing now.
It's like, how did you handle that was the second part of that, but I think you touched base on it. But as we were sitting here talking, something came to me, and I got a question with your faith, with your business, with your with your interpretation and all that. My question is, do you see your work that you do on all three phases, herbalism, beauty, interpreting, do you see that as your ministry?
Yeah.
Not, and like, but like, elaborate. Like, how do you feel like this is your ministry, and you're purposely, like, what is your ministry wanting to do? Like, what is your purpose of your ministry when we talk about those three things?
Well, interpreting, for one, I'm in so many different places, but one of the things, you know, I think that there could be something more to the ability, the skill that I have as a sign language interpreter. I feel that I'm not working at my full capacity there when it comes to my ministry. But I just, in my daily life, like, when there's a time, I'm like today being, being at this place where, you know, it's a rehab and I'm working and, you know, just the conversation with that mom, just giving her hope. I was just in the right place at the right time.
Right.
So I feel like, instead of, for me, I was like looking for purpose, but purpose happens when you're in your daily life. You should, like, instead of us all going out and saying, oh, we should all be missionaries somewhere. Well, we're here and we're interacting with community on a daily basis. We should be showing up wherever we are.
Right.
As children of God, as ambassadors to hope, to truth, and to love. Because that mom, I didn't say anything to her about God. I just told her that there's hope.
Right.
Because I'm an example of someone who went to rehab and then it was sober. I had been sober for 2 years when I, like, basically recently, you know, so we just did the 2 years, and, you know, and then,
so like your ministry through your different avenues, herbalism, beauty, and interpreting, is just, you're just giving hope to people.
That I think not hiding my light under a bowl, you know. I feel like in anywhere, if it, I bet you this may be in the Quran, it may be somewhere in all the other books, something about not hiding your light, because they're all about goodness too, you know. Very similar, some similar stuff.
Right.
So wherever and whoever you are, whatever religion you follow, I like to think of I don't like to think of it as a religion. It's just a way of life.
Gotcha.
And it's pointing to the Creator.
Okay.
And who, you know, Allah is God. God, Allah in Aramaic, that's God.
Yeah.
You know, so, like, there's all these different names for God. But I just, when I say God, I mean the Creator of the universe. So for that, it's like, I feel that all I need to do is point to Him in my life, whether it's say His name or something to someone, or just give them, like, give them a smile. Like, something chemically happens in our body, in our mental health, when not only when you receive a hug, and I'm not a hugger, but they talk all about the hug. Mm-hmm. But also somebody just smiling. If they're having a rough day, like some thought, smile, something happens in your body, in the serotonin and the dopamine in your brain, and that changes that. It's like you got that vitamin B12.
That energy, that sense of happiness.
And that is purpose. That's life.
Agreed.
Because this is the world is so dark and sad and evil. It's like all I need to do is one person. And if everybody did that one thing today, wouldn't this world, it would, I know it sounds so cliche, but it would be a better place.
It would be, but we're far from that. But we need more people like you with that mindset in order for us to even get close to that. So I'm going to wrap things up.
Okay.
And I'm going to start this thing I'm going to do with every show. And I'm going to say this. Finish this sentence. All right? So this is the part of our show where you say, finish this sentence. All right? I was misunderstood because
I didn't know how to share my true thoughts, like who I really was. I didn't know how to describe what I felt. I'm bad at that. Like, I just couldn't communicate. I was misunderstood because I didn't know how to communicate how I felt.
Nice. Okay. I can agree with that. I used to struggle with that, but I've been working at it, trying to communicate a little bit better.
I struggled with it just by answering that question. Did you not?
I see that. We all see that.
It took me a minute to process. But see, I'm a verbal processor, so once it's out, I collect the words and I go, there it is.
Yeah.
What's next? Well, that's a broad question.
Gotcha. Fishnet. Okay, and now that people are starting to know you and get to understand you after being on the show today, what's next?
What's next?
What's next for you?
Well, I'm moving.
Where are you moving to?
Buffalo.
Oh, she's coming to Buffalo, New York. So, like, when you come to Buffalo, New York, like, are you gonna be trying to? I know there's a lot of shops around here that has a lot of herbalism, a lot of holistic things. Are you trying to network out here? What is your game plan when you get out to Buffalo?
So, I guess I struggle with confidence in herbalism, in the business. And so my plan for what's next is to really hone in on what I'm really good at when it comes to herbal medicine. And hone in on those skills. And in the meantime, I always network. I always come prepared. I have cards. I'm always talking to people about, honestly, it's always brought up. So it's like, that's just how it's going to be. But I think for my calling in this area, I definitely have relied on the internet to look things up and whatnot. And I really want to hone in on those skills and memorize things. So it's going to go to school again, but it's like my own teaching.
Gotcha. Self-teaching.
Yeah.
But you're basically going to be diving into the Buffalo culture, networking, and researching more and to elevate your understanding of yourself.
Yeah, I've had some people ask me like, hey, I really want to tackle this health situation. Can you make me something? And I always tell people I'm not a doctor. I am self-taught.
Right.
Please do your own research.
Right.
I'm not a know-it-all.
As you should.
I like to be considered a medicine woman, but I'm not there.
Dr. Quinn.
In my own, and I loved Dr. Quinn.
I'm sure you did.
My mom said I was always outside making some fort and a kitchen in the fort, and I had a bunch of weeds, and I would get poison oak and everything because I would forage as a kid. Now I forage as an adult.
Right.
And I know
what you're doing.
Yeah.
Nice.
But still, isn't that interesting how maybe that was what was first?
Right.
You asked me that
I
question.
did actually.
What was born first?
See that? Well, you know what? I'd like to take the time and say thank you for coming on the show today. We learned a lot from your experience and what you got coming down the pike. So it's going to be interesting to see you move forward. Of course, I'm going to have you on again, right? You gonna come back on?
Yeah, of course.
All right, we're gonna come back on. We're gonna talk about.
I'm kind of attached to you.
Yeah, kinda. But we're gonna next time. I think I want to tackle some more, a little bit more intimate conversations, and kind of like really get down into it to try to help some people out there that's struggling with certain things. So, thanks again for coming on to the show. Thanks for everybody for tuning in to the podcast. Like, subscribe, comment, do it all. Tell your friends, tell your mom, brother, sister, everybody. There's a new podcast in town. And we are here to stay. We are going to take it over. And don't forget, being misunderstood is probably the best thing. So, until the next time, peace. We out.